This is Sandy Lake in Bedford. It's surrounded by mixed Acadian forest, old growth stands, and it's home to a rich variety of wildlife.
The lake itself supports diverse aquatic life, including a revived population of Atlantic salmon, snapping turtles, and some strange mammals. Now, this is Sandy Lake Regional Park. Everything within it is protected, but biologists and advocates say this boundary should be expanded to preserve the health of the entire ecosystem. But a recent announcement by the provincial government has put that in jeopardy.
To the province, this area represents an opportunity to build a lot of housing really quickly. But to advocates, it's a place of irreplaceable ecological value. Depending on who you ask, you'll get a very different description of why Sandy Lake is special.
In 1971, an environmental survey of Greater Halifax-Dartmouth identified 7 significant sites for environmental protection. Some call them the 7 wonders of HRM, and by some, we mean us, but trust us, they're pretty awesome. They include McNabb's Island, the Cole Harbour Salt Marshes, and Admiral Cove. And among that list was Sandy Lake. The report described it as unique in the region for its ecological richness and one of the finest landscapes in the metro.
A lot has changed since the 70s, but the significance of Sandy Lake has remained the same. Lands to the east are protected, but lands to the west, which are critical for conservation, are not.
And this is where the province enters the picture. In March, they announced a major plan to address the HRM's housing crisis. It established 9 special planning areas where housing will be fast-tracked for development, and within them, the province is taking control over the planning process. And one of these areas is, you guessed it, Sandy Lake. As a special area, Sandy Lake could see up to 6,000 units of new housing. Now, this isn't totally out of left field. The HRM has been considering development here for a while, but had been waiting on the findings of a park boundary study to determine where, or if, development would be appropriate.
Now that the province is in control, their main goal is to speed up the process. And while they've still promised to consider the boundary study, it's not clear how they'll balance its findings with 6,000 units of new housing.
To understand why the province is prioritizing speed, we have to understand something about housing in the HRM. For a long time, it was relatively affordable, largely due to low population growth and rates of construction that matched it. Then in 2016, the population growth rate basically doubled, and the rate of construction didn't. And this led to a supply shortage.
The province has justified these special planning areas by saying we need to address that supply gap as quickly as possible. And to grease the wheels, they've removed things like transparency and public input.
In comparison, HRM's process is more thorough. It includes studies and community input and tries to make the most informed decision possible. But if population projections are even somewhat accurate, this pace of growth could be the new norm.
Ideally, housing for that growth would be built in the most sustainable way, as infill development within the urban area. But there just isn't enough room there for all of it. So to accommodate that growth, we need to build up in urban areas, but also out to undeveloped areas whenever we have to. And that's the question facing Sandy Lake. Should it be one of those areas where we expand out?
For some, the province's special areas are a necessary measure to rugby tackle the housing crisis. For others, they're an overstep that lacks transparency and rushes important considerations.
Personally, I'm conflicted. I know that we need to build a lot of housing, but I think it comes down to this. There are a lot of places to build housing, but there's only one Sandy Lake. What we need is a development process that can adaptively respond to things like rapid population growth, but also one that can value considerations beyond the immediacy of the present. Otherwise, we stand to lose some things that we can't get back.